I wanted to share with you. Bent Larsen playing Boris Spassky in 1970. As you can see, this was a match between Team USSR and Team World in Belgrade in 1970. Current world champion out at the time, Boris Vasilyevich Spassky against Bent Larsen, one of the best players of the time. So, Bent Larsen was well known for his creative approach to chess, thus the first move b3. It is not a bad move, but you have to be careful. You can be in trouble if you're not careful. That's exactly what happened in this game. So the point of this line is, as white says, I'm going to develop the bishop first, and then I'll see what you're doing and then respond accordingly. So black puts the pawn in the center. White goes bishop b2, and black is protecting the pawn in the center. So modern theory suggests that now it's time to go e3 and then go bishop to b5 to put pressure on the center and, well, try to castle quickly. Bent played c4, transposing into some kind of Sicilian. And Boris Vasilyevich plays knight f6 as fast as possible. Knight to f3, attacking the central pawn. So black has to react. You cannot leave that pawn hanging, most likely, so you have to protect it or push it. Well, or create a bigger threat, but that's not an option here. So he plays e4, more space with a tempo, very natural move. Knight goes to d4. So here's my note for you. This is one risky strategy again. Moving the piece again, 0 pawns in d center, 1 pawn in accelerated center. White does not control the center, is not even close to castling. That's a dangerous approach. Still not bad. Bishop c5. Modern examples shown, if I remember correctly, it's knight to f5 and white can keep going. But jumping with the knight 3 times in the opening, that is not something to recommend. So white decides to take, and black takes with the d pawn. Why did black choose the d pawn? Usually you should take the pawn approaching the center. In this case, black says it is more important for me to develop my pieces quickly. So white seems that did not waste the tempo by capture. In fact, white did waste the tempo because now black can develop the bishop without wasting time on moving the pawn. Believe it or not, white is already in trouble. Black has easy and quick development. Check it out. Black can castle here or black can castle there. This bishop is ready to go here, here, or here. Quick note, why does black have such luxury to develop pieces wherever they want? Because black has a far advanced pawn in the center. Black has all the space available. Black can do whatever black wants. White plays e3. Well, you need to develop the bishop somehow. Bishop goes to f5. Why did black choose bishop to f5, you may ask? Why not bishop g4 with a tempo? I think that was a reasonable move to play, bishop g4 with a tempo. However, black is anticipating that white wanted to put the pawn in the center with d4, and with bishop f5, black stopped it because en passant is working and there are two defenders for 2 attackers. Black is winning, so d4 is out of the table for now. And black controls the center forever now. So white goes queen c2. Not a very good looking move to me, but you have to... Well, castling short is too dangerous now, so Bent decides to castle long. Queen to e7. Hey, I'm guessing queen d7 was equally good, but Boris Vasilyevich didn't want to count this one. Why? You don't want to jeopardize your pawn structure even more. So queen e7. Well, actually, now that I look at the position, d4 is not stopped now, but that would be too dangerous to open up the center when black is better developed. For example, d4 takes, white takes, for example, takes, and then attack, and then check is coming. This king is stuck in the center. Maybe black can give a check first, and then take on d3, and then go rook d8. White is in big trouble because white is not developed. So Bent decides to go bishop e2, developing the bishop. White has only 1 square for the bishop, unlike his opponent, due to space advantage and pawn in the center. Black castles long. This is the fastest way to complete the development because you don't have to move the rook from d8 anymore. It's on open file right there. Instead, if black castles short, one tempo is required. Black needs 2 more moves to complete the development, put the rooks in the center on open files. Long castle is the fastest development possible. And now, well, Ben should have tried knight c3, and after rook to e8, castle long, at least he wouldn't lose such a horrible game. White is much worse due to lack of space, but there's no immediate action happening. Black is just significantly better, not more than that. He decides to go f4. Technically speaking, white is putting a pawn in the center, the accelerated center. But there's no use. So just like in the Rubinstein game, center for the sake of center is not good. The center is important when you can use the space behind it for development and when you have time to do so. This is not the case here. So obviously white is using the trick that en passant is horrible because the bishop is unprotected. But this isn't checkers. Black doesn't have to take. And I don't see any benefit of this one except controlling some important square on e5. But why do you need it now? That's just a bad move. And now black says, okay, that's enough. Enough is enough. I developed most of my pieces. You did nothing. It's time to punish you for this kind of play. So black says, I'm going to get you right now. I'm going at you with knight to g4. Black decides to not complete the development because there's really not much to do on the e-file at this point. It's time for action. White developed 3 pieces. Black developed 5 pieces. And it's black to move. So black is way ahead. It's time for action. So knight jumps to g4 with all kinds of threats like checks and sacrifices on e3. Check mainly on h4. So white tries to stop that check with g3. Black says, aha, that is, by the way, called the hook, the pawn on g3. Black says, okay, I see a weak square. I'm going to get you through it. h5, I don't need my rook in the center. I'm going to open the h-file. There's nothing you can do about that. Well, maybe white should have tried to go h4, I guess. In this position, well, nobody cares about the pawn on g7 at this stage. That's just a poisoned pawn. I don't even want to commentate that. I'm guessing there are multiple ways to crush it, but maybe rook h7, bishop moves back, and black continues. This is not, we are not playing in pawns anymore. Black has all the pieces in the attack, white is completely lost. Maybe white could have tried h4 to delay the inevitable, but I'm guessing black can even break through with well, maybe not immediate g5, that may be too optimistic, but f6 followed by g5. Well, I would say h4 would delay the inevitable. There's a weak pawn here, black can get to it very quickly. White played h3, attacking the knight, hoping that the knight moves. And then, for example, if knight moves, white can say, phew, at least I can go h4, g4 and not open any files. So if you're ahead in development and castled, and your opponent's king is in the center, try to open files. Very often sacrifices are justified. Thus h4. White took the knight, black takes the pawn, opens the h-file, and well, if rook takes h8, it is rook takes h8, rook is coming to h1, queen is coming to h4. There's no time to take the bishop because check is coming. The only move is bishop to f1 and g2, and that's the queen already. It's time to resign, like literally right now. So instead, white goes rook to g1 and says, okay, at least I stopped the pawn and the bishop is hanging. Maybe I can survive. No, we're not playing in pawns anymore. Rook to h1. Brilliancy by the world champion. Rook goes to h1 saying, you take my rook. This would have never happened if white had a king in the castle. White has to take. The pawn goes forward. What do you do? Well, natural move is rook g1. Why didn't Bent play it? Check it out. Queen h4 check. The only move is king d1. Queen comes to h1. And check out all white's pieces. This is undeveloped. This is undeveloped. This is way too far. The king is stuck in the center. Again, this is basically a queen. It's time to resign. So Bent plays rook to f1. At least maybe you can take my rook and leave me alone with that pawn. Check is coming. Again, rook f2 is horrible because the promotion happens. So king goes to d1 and just promoting the queen. Actually, the game ended here, unfortunately for us. The game ended here. Could have continued capture, bishop to g4 check. So if you count the pieces, white has extra knight, but look at it, look at that knight, look at that rook, and now look at the king. 18 move, white is checkmated. If bishop to e2, it's literally mate in one. If king goes to c1, queen e1, mate on next move to follow. That is why Bent Larsen just resigned here. How can I summarize this game, you may ask? With all due respect to top 5 player in the world, top 10 for sure, Bent Larsen, he made all the mistakes from the list above. 0 pawns in the center. With white you have to put at least 1 pawn, otherwise it's difficult to play. They play c4 English, no problem there. But it's harder to play if you do not have a pawn in the center. So check it out. Not the fastest development. Look at this position. White has 0 pawns in the center. White did not castle, and white did not develop his minor piece from b1. White did everything wrong, and that's why we have this. How many move brilliancy? Let me see. That's it. 17 move brilliancy. In 17 move, one of the top players in the world was crushed. Why did that happen? He broke the 3 rules of the opening. Actually, he broke the 4th rule again. He didn't do it as fast as possible. He played the move f4. Although technically following the rule of fighting for the center, you have to fight for the center first, and then the accelerated center one. I hope you've learned enough to understand the principles, to understand what not to do, how to use when your opponent is doing what these players were doing. And in the last section of my course, I would give you my opinion. I would make sort of an opening survey of what do I think in